Hello, Grown Black Folks Talk. Another quick hit from the mindset of being owned to the mindset of ownership. So let me go all the way back to the beginning. Do you know, well, not the beginning, but the beginning of African American existence in the Americas? Do you know that the first day that an enslaved person decided to escape, all the programming that was put on that person to believe that they were only chattel to be owned and controlled by someone else, they broke it and took back ownership of their life. And if they made it to freedom, they took back ownership of their ability to use what they had to support themselves. Yes, depending on where they went, their situation may not have been that much better, but they took ownership of going wherever they saw best and took ownership of their life. They went from saying, I can't escape, I can't be any other than a slave, to how can I escape and be free? Having an ownership mindset is not about how much money you have today. Some people who started very important businesses and propositions started out with nothing but an idea. I showed you D. Manning Jackson. Remember that? I showed you that video of him that I had on the channel. And in having that vision, having that picture of him on the channel, I wanted y'all to see the story of this great visionary. Y'all remember that? Y'all remember that? There, I'm going to put him back up on the screen for a minute so we can make this point. Remember him? Hold on, let me put him on screen for us. I did that video, and I want you to notice the building behind him and the blue building that he is standing in, okay? D. Manning Jackson has now made a way for 3 generations of people to experience the perspective of ownership. The building behind him is the B building of the El Bethel Arms. The building just behind him is part of the A building. They actually are linked together. And beyond me in the other direction is the C building. It wraps about 3/4 of that whole block. And then the building that is blue is the El Bethel Missionary Baptist Church, which is across the street, which is the owner of all of that. And that all came. When he came, there was nothing but a storefront. D. Manning Jackson, doctor, Reverend Doctor, Pastor D. Manning Jackson is the person that made everything you see there possible. He wasn't thinking about, I can't do this. If you Google Dr. D. Manning Jackson, you'll find out that he had been involved in civil rights from Texas all the way through to California. This was just his last best work. But he has now made it possible for 3 generations to be, well, no, because some of his generation is still alive. 2.5 generations, and then generation 3 and 4 are all running around in that church you see there. It's not about how much money you have when you start. All these things had to be built from the ground up. The vision of one man created that, okay? And because of the vision of that one man, peer to my grandmother, I sit here as a member of the ownership class of African Americans. Now, I want you to notice something. I won't put it back up in a minute. His favorite verse is important. We tend to think about ownership as oppression because of our experience. Look at him again. I should have left it up, but I just didn't think about it in time. Let me go back. Let me put him up there again. I want you to notice something. His favorite verse is on his side. Luke 22:27, if you can't see that. I am among you as one that serveth. This was a quote from the Lord Jesus Christ himself, the owner of heaven and earth, the maker, the creator, the ruler, the heir, and the sustainer. Ownership properly conceived of is not when you get to a position of having power and then you can now lord it over someone else. You go from slave to master. No, ownership is a higher level of service. When it comes to everything that Pastor Jackson built, I am not. Sorry about that, y'all. Throat dried out. Had a coughing fit. Y'all didn't need to see that. I am not speaking from the position of someone who is now lording it over management, employee, and residents. Oh no, ownership is a higher calling to service. It's serving from a position of controlling the resources and a position of strength, as opposed to being in a position of higher need, which is an employee, and from a position of being between those two things, which is management. Ownership is being able to serve from the highest level. From the highest level. as put forward by the creator of heaven and earth himself. Now, when you think in personal ownership, you're now not thinking of what you can and cannot do based on what someone else thinks you can and cannot do. Now you are based on, okay, given the resources that we have, what can we do and how can we do it? The stuff that I showed you with Pastor Jackson in the background, that's property in San Francisco. Without getting into the exact amount that I'm responsible for, just know those are some hard conversations. And sometimes, just like Kevin Durant and the Brooklyn Nets, sometimes people who've not done the work to be owners want to step up toe to toe and start telling us what we're going to do with the stuff that God has given us to be stewards of. It works out about just as well as Kevin Durant and with the Brooklyn Nets. He signed a 4-year contract. He's going to be playing for them in the fall, just so y'all know. See, a lot of people want the perks of being owners as they understand it. They want to get to being on the other side because they only understand the world from the master-slave relationship. They only understand ownership from, I'll finally get to somewhere where I can beat down on somebody else. So what people in that mindset do, and it's a different video, the spirit of competition. They compete with one another for that spot. They tear down everything they're doing with other people to compete for that spot because they still only have the mind of a slave. They don't know anything else, but wouldn't it be nice to be at the top of the system? In some ways, even the masters were enslaved to their own system. It's still that same mean mindset. And one of the reasons that you have that same terrible mindset is because a lot of slave owners were descended from very poor men in Europe who have been looking at the nobility and wishing they could get up that high. And the nobility was looking up at the royalty, and the royalty was looking up at God, and everybody wishing they had everybody else's spot. And you know what that is? That's Satan's bag. So that's the idea of ownership that allows you to try to be somebody that you're not. Because real ownership is about serving from a position of strength and being fully resourced. Now, I want you to back all the way up, back all the way up, back. I'm going to do a different video about the spirit of the competition that we get. Because I already told you where that's from. That's satanic. But let's back up a little bit. In the Black community, there is a divergence, a strong one, right now between Black men and Black women. One group of people is, one side of this is generally more effective in being able to work with the system long enough to learn skills and diverge. Now, on paper, there are more Black men that own businesses than Black women. So this is not to say that this is not something that Black men do, but also you have to consider how much longer Black men have had, like men generally, have had more exclusive access to the economy. The 21st century, however, has opened the economy to everybody. And now you see Black women moving forward in all kinds of directions, making 6- and 7-figure money, and it's becoming a thing. And so there is this diverse. This is not to say that Black men are not doing it, but Black men appear to be struggling more with working with the system as it exists and doing the steps necessary to move into an ownership position. Now, there are a lot of reasons for that. We don't always need to go get out the stats. The point I'm trying to make is being able to move, take the steps to move from employee to management to ownership. There is a process for doing that. I was an employee. I moved into a management position with the company, and then I ended up as secretary of the board of the El Bethel Arms. That's how it works. You have to learn, in order to be able to be successful in this position, you have to learn all the things that go into that. And a lot of times people want things and they don't want the steps, and that's what causes a lot of problems in the Black community because people are trying to get to an ownership position and they're trying to get there in order to enslave. But let's just leave that part out for just a minute. You can't skip steps and then be mad because you can't get what you want. You can't have the mindset. I'll give you an easy example. It's common. And gentlemen, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but it's very common to hear men in the Black community talking about, I can't see my child because she won't let me. That's really common. You know what that means? That means that that person is still thinking as if they're enslaved. The woman is the slave mistress because she won't let me. And all those men in the courts and judicial system are enslaving me. Now, this is not necessarily someone who is, if you're actually held by the system of the judicial, you're in prison working for 90 cents a day doing near slave labor. So you walking around loose, talking to your boys, but up here, you're wholly owned. If a black man did not have his father in the home, he may reach physical maturity, but his sister can look at his mom and learn how to at least be a strong, independent adult. If his mother's doing enough to make sure that he and his sister have enough to eat and can go to school and can graduate from high school by herself, with the cost of everything being what it is, she knows how to do this. She knows how to take responsibility. She knows how to have ownership of her life as a woman, so that she can get this done. He will not be shown in that house, nor by his grandmother, nor by his aunties. If he's in a community that has a lot of women who have absent men, I'm not going into the reasons, that's the reality he lives with. So that he may be physically grown, but emotionally, morally, spiritually, he's still going to be dependent until someone guides him through. And this is how you get these situations where these black men want to be dominant and at the same time are still talking like they're wholly owned by some woman. And if you're still wholly owned by some woman, you certainly cannot be strong enough in your mind to stand up in the world of men. I didn't even say stand up to. I said stand up in. Kevin Durant, to his credit, is one employee I can think about with a contract who actually stood up in. It was not successful, but at least he had that much sense of his value. He was able to grasp the ownership of the intense ability that he has. Most men in the black community, I'd say many men, because not being able to separate from that dominant woman who was their mother, who had to be, because she had to take on both the economic and the nurturing end, or she had to take on both the internal and the external. And of course, she could not do it perfectly because she's doing the work of two people. And I'm not talking about all the reasons why right now. But like I said, she was able to pass on to her daughter at least how to do that. So these men are full grown physically, but in their heads, they're wholly owned by women. It is amazing to me to see videos of men who are exploring Africa. They're married, they have children. They're not thinking about the women. They're doing it's a video channel called Four Cycles of Life. And he is looking at things in Africa, the opportunities and the way Africans are doing business and the way other people in the world are saying, this is what you can do and what you can do. He hasn't had any video about the women walking around because he's faithfully married and he loves his wife. And men are in the video talking, they're like, well, that was all great, but when are you going to show us the sisters? When are you going to show us the African women? He's talking like ownership. His company pulls down between $50,000 and $150,000 a month right here. He's talking about an owner who's looking for having something on the continent in case things go south in the United States. So his sons and his widow actually have something, and they want to find women because in their thinking, they're wholly owned by women. The manosphere is wholly owned by women. And by the way they talk so much about women hitting the wall, that manosphere is owned by women over 30. The gynocracy certainly does exist in their minds. But when you begin to think about your life as what belongs to you, and that you are able to take your skills and talents, not I can't do it, I can't afford it, and it's your fault, your fault, your fault. Whoever's in the fault position, they own you. When you come to the point of how can I do it? How can I afford it? How can I make it happen? And what skills and talents do I have? In other words, you're coming from a position of strength and you're coming from a position of being resourced. Now you're beginning to think like ownership. And in the United States of America, because the United States of America is a capitalist country, capital, not labor, is the position of what now? As Kevin Durant found out, unfortunately for him, a capitalist society favors owners. So when you learn how to think and move like an owner, when you're willing to go through the steps, if you don't start from that position, to learn what it takes to run whatever it is that's around you, then you can move into a different area of your life because you are now thinking properly. Mopka Mommy did a fantastic video, and I'm going to make a separate video about it, but about how Black women who want to move on up don't want to learn the steps to actually find the men they want to find. She did more in 10 minutes than I think she did more in 10 minutes than I think any other video explaining the relationship between sports. When women are always of the mind that black men obsess too much about sports, she did more to explain the relationship between sports and finding the men of all races that you're actually looking for. Then I don't. It was an amazing video, and I'm going to do an actual response because there's some important things in there. But the idea is, whatever it is you want, you have to take ownership of the process. You can't sit up here and talk about, well, they already talk too much about that. They're not talking about things we need to talk about. That's that same thing of making someone else owner about whether you get what you need instead of taking the steps necessary to get what you need. So go from the mindset of being wholly owned to the mindset of ownership. And I don't mean being able to get to a position where you can use and abuse, discard people. I'm talking about the kind of ownership that Pastor Jackson put out there for you. Being able to be of service. First of all, putting yourself in a position of strength and resources. And then being able to be of service, not only to yourself, but to whoever you choose around you. And it probably should be said, if for a while the service you need to do is to rest and heal, that's okay too. All right, it's quick hit. Don't mean to have a long video. I'll see you next time. Bye.